Well, good morning, Todd.
Morning, Joseph.
This morning we have with us Todd Ford from Glen St Motor Sales right here in Rector, Arkansas. We were looking through some pictures, and that's, if you look at this price here, tell us all about that, Todd. That's for our day.
Yes, that's for my time. But yeah, you could buy a GMC truck in 1965 for $1,769 and some change, and 50 cents. So
Now, what was it Glenn used to talk about? You could buy one for so much.
yeah, well,
And if you wanted
now
here-
you have hundreds of options on GMC pickups, and but back in basically 1965 and or before that, you had basically two options: one with or one without heat.
Yeah, yeah.
I really think that's going to be a used truck right there. That's going to be. It might not be
1769.50.
deluxe cab. Well, it doesn't say that it's pre-owned.
Yeah, I think it's new. Buy. You
Yep.
can.
You can buy a 1965 pickup,
Yeah, it's now not new.
deluxe
yeah.
cab, wide side bed, heater and defroster, oil filter. Yeah,
Oil filter.
oil filter, oil bath cleaner, 3 mud and snow 4-ply nylon tires.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
We have all kinds of memorabilia there at the store, and I've gone back and even found don't have the very first invoice, but I think like the 4th invoice, and down at the bottom he would write how much they made off the deal.
Yeah.
And he made like $8 off the first one.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, $8.
Yeah. So to think of that we went from, I keep saying we.
Well,
I
you were
went
there
to
a
work
long time.
Yeah, I started there in 1984, right after Danny bought the place, and so and I've been retired 2.5 years, but I still feel like I'm part of the family. So, and I hope you think the same. There's a picture of Glen St in the original building.
Correct.
Yeah, I use my mouse around here, but you can't see the mouse.
A lot of people have seen that picture. That picture's in the early mid-'60s now. That building still stands.
It does.
That is the parts department now. It's, of course, we have stucco and different front fascias, but if you'll notice that the windows are still there where the parts department.
Yeah.
And it's still, if you tore the facing off the old part of the building, the paint that says Glen St Sales there is still there. That brick wall is still there.
Yeah, it is. Here's a little lighter picture. It's
Yeah.
a newspaper, and it's not very clear, but it's still the same building.
Yeah, that's a rare picture. Actually, you even said you'd never seen
I've
that
never
picture.
seen it,
That's a rare picture. That's going to be in the late '60s, early '70s. But that's at the very front of the building, and the front door is not there anymore. But those windows are still there. And actually, where that sign is, if you look, that sign, the base of it is still there.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's got the LED sign on it now.
Mm-hmm.
But that door is not there from the outside, but on the inside, it's shelving.
It's shelving.
Just filled in the doorway
Yeah.
with shelves. Yeah.
it is.
And let's see. I like to look through these pictures and just try to find. Here's a picture from.
Yeah, this is a picture from. Yeah, this is a great picture.
This is
was
probably
back.
going to be like 85.
Yeah, this was back when you were wrestling, and we called you Joey the Terrible. That's
Yeah.
wow. So what that is, if you'll notice, they are working on the outside of that building. We did that first, the first fascia, and we put the brick skirt and all that. If you'll see through that window, you'll see the lumber and the scaffolding. But that little thing, I remember that thing that you're working on there. That was what you ordered your parts and your trucks and everything. That was the computer you talked to General Motors with.
You did warranty.
Mm-hmm.
You did everything on that, and there were two. These were 7.5-inch floppies, and you had to switch them out as to what you were doing with it. And and it just took forever to type in anything you did, and it worked off the satellite that was on top of the building, and the satellite didn't work half the time.
No.
It was a terrible, terrible situation.
They had an old dot matrix printer, and it was noisy, and I remember it though.
Yeah, it was huge. It was all one piece.
Yeah, it was.
That was a long time ago, and then here's something that we're all proud of. That's I still look at the front of every vehicle. I don't care where I am to see if there's a Glen St GMC sign, license plate on the front.
My mother designed those years ago.
Yeah, that was and I found this one on Facebook, I guess, or maybe is that?
Looks like eBay.
Yeah, I think it is eBay. Yeah, people sell them. License plate, $24.99. So tell me about your first remembrance of Glen St.
Of Glen St the grandfather, or Glen St the business?
Of the business, yeah.
Well, my first job, I was raised at the building and at the dealership all my life, but I remember my first job, not one of my first jobs, but my very first job was we had a soda machine inside the front door that we spoke about a while ago, and it was one of those, you dropped a quarter in and the light come on. It was a Coke machine. It said have a Coke, and you opened the door and you pulled out your bottle, and there was a bottle opener, and there was also a rack for your empty bottles.
That were a nickel.
They were a nickel.
You cared about the door.
Yeah,
they
you
were
could
a
not.
nickel.
Yeah, you had to drink your soda there because there was a nickel deposit on them. But my job was to fill that soda machine, and where I'd fill the soda machine, and where people would open them, it would spew some drops of soda on the floor, and I had to wipe that up, and I also had to empty out the empty rack that had the empty bottles in it. And those wooden racks, and then the soda distributors would come and pick those empty bottles up. We still have those. We still have those wooden racks. We still have a few of them up in the the attic.
Had to put the Pepsis in the Pepsis, and the Dr. Pepper in the Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, that's right. And the Cokes and the Cokes.
Keep it
and
sorted. Yeah.
Yeah, and the 7-Up went with Dr. Pepper, and so yeah, you had to keep all that sorted.
You probably don't know this, but my very first job was sorting soda bottles for Dorchester Supermarket. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we ought to have a contest then, Joe, and see who's better.
I had a lot more to sort than you did.
I could do it to this day, though. You know, I mean,
yeah.
We had that soda machine over. We have a place over at Brookins, and it burnt, and that soda machine still worked, but it burned up in it, and it was that was a tough one. That was some sentimental value there. And the machine was valuable. I don't know what it was worth, but it wasn't. I mean, it just wasn't.
It wasn't worth as much to the public as it was to you.
It was
sure.
Sentimental.
Yeah,
But it was so neat. But the machine did work.
Yeah. For those who watch this who have not been back to Rector in several years, the Glen St now looks like this here at Rector, and if you see these windows. These two, and the door, well, you can't see it, but forget you can't see my mouse. But you, over to the right of the building, you see 3 windows, square windows. The one on the very far right was a part of a building that Danny built on that had the offices and whatever he took over. And then those 2 windows there are the original windows, and between those was a door.
Actually, that is the original building.
Yeah,
the part that we tore. Yeah,
I wish we could point at things.
Yeah, the door was actually right in between the window on the right and the window on the far right and the window in the middle. There's 3 windows there, but the door.
Yeah, you're right. This
door was there. You go inside the building and you can see where the door was.
Yeah, this was where the CarQuest stuff was, and the paint and all that when I first went to work there.
Correct.
Yeah,
and we were Acme paint supplier, and we would actually to this day our storm shelter is in that old building. It's the walls are concrete blocks reinforced with filled concrete. And so we think the building was built in the late 20s, early 30s. We don't have any paperwork on that, but it's old.
Yeah, that was a huge deal when we got to spread out into a bigger building, and here's the I guess the first. This was the first crew that I worked with, and we were talking about how many are gone out of this group.
Well, as you'll see, one interesting fact about this photo is one right in the middle, standing right in front of you, is David Flick, who was the one that was murdered.
Yeah, that's right. In the very center of the picture.
Right in the very center of the picture. And of course, most of us that are, if you watch this here from Rector, you'll recognize William Edgen, our service manager for many, many years. And Dwight Van Gelder up in the top. Jim Forrest has passed on. Earl Midkiff has passed on. David Scallion there, he's still around. But,
and me with my black
and there's
hair.
Joey, and that big handlebar mustache of Joey's. Larry French standing up in the back. We lost him a few years ago. Everybody remembers Larry. Yeah. And of course, my mom and dad. Pam.
There's Pam Forrest. Scotty Jones.
Yep.
William Edgen.
And Kenny Wayne is back behind Pam. You can't see him all that well, but Kenny Wayne.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then Sambo.
Yeah, David Scallion. He's in there.
And Jim Forrest, he's gone.
Jim Forrest, yeah.
Dwight Vandergriff.
Dwight's doing well.
He's still
saw
with
him
us
the other day.
Yeah.
He don't look much different in that picture, really.
He really didn't. He really didn't. There's the, as you say, the leader of the pack right there.
Yeah, that picture was taken for it was a commendation that General Motors did for us. I don't know. I don't really remember. It was a customer satisfaction thing, and
yeah.
But I don't really remember. It's crazy, but it's bad. But yeah. I don't.
Well, I'm kind of proud how the two guys on the outside turned out because I kind of helped raise them.
Yep, you sure did.
Yeah. So let's see here. Here's an old picture of Glen St here too.
Yeah, don't give me a line when that was taken, but he was a young man there.
I bet you don't even remember.
Yeah, the wave in his hair like Andy Griffith, man.
Yeah. So we're just going through some pictures here. This, I'm kind of proud of this. This is the billboards you'll see around, and our exchange student that we had in 1995 is now a graphic designer. And she actually did all the logos and all the business cards.
She did.
And yes, and she says just upgraded it to a newer one that I don't think I have. But then this is kind of a funny story. Danny called me in his office one day. He said, "I want to pass something by you." And he'd already bought the Kennett dealership, and what was that?
89.
89, and so he said, "I think about buying another dealership." And I said, "Well, I'm not really surprised." I said, "Just keep rolling." And there was one in Paraguay that I thought he might have possibly bought it, and he said a GM. There were actually two GM dealers and a Ford dealer in Paraguay at that time. And he said, "Well, actually, no, it's the Ford dealership." And I said, "Ford? Man, we don't know anything about Fords. We don't know anything about the vehicles or how the corporate operates. What in the world?" And but he did, and it's turned out to do very well.
It has,
and we're very proud of it. That's where Kirk is now.
Yeah, so. And I have people on dealer trades from other dealers from all over the South, and as far north as Chicago. That'll call, and I'll tell them my name and that our family owns it, and they're like, "My, a family named Ford owning a GMC truck." I said, "Yeah," and I got a lot of fights when I was little too, so because of that.
Yeah. I think this is the Kennett dealership, right?
No, that's the South store.
Yeah, it's the South store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the South store.
Yeah, and that that is a combination of both Horner and Tom Kirk's.
Yes,
So-
that is correct. And and we have one in Kennett, a GM store in Kennett.
Yeah,
It was just up a while ago, but
I mean, oh, okay. And this is something that project that got into that was so much fun. Duck Dynasty,
yes,
when they were at their top, they purchased their trucks, and I'm not completely familiar with the whole deal. I think it changed over time, but the trucks, came from Glen St, and Jep came up to get this truck one time, and he was so gracious. He went to every dealership.
he went to every dealership. He also stopped by, and there was a person over at the Kennett nursing home that had called while we were at Kennett, and the people at the nursing home said this guy is the number one fan, and he made a point to go by there, and he went in there and met that guy. That was amazing. That's Jep Robertson, and he is the youngest of the Robertson family, and we basically got to know him really well. Him and his wife Jessica and their kids they're just fantastic. And the first vehicle that he purchased, we actually went down there to West Monroe, Louisiana. We just made a day trip out of it. I went and grabbed my two younger kids. My oldest one, she was in Fayetteville at the time, but I grabbed my two younger kids, and Kurt grabbed his. They were here, and they got a day out of school for it and everything. So we went down there and we got to meet the whole family. And they were wonderful. They were absolutely wonderful. Begged us to stay, but we had to get on back.
Well, that was a big deal in this part of the country. Everybody was excited that Glen St was partnering up with Duck Dynasty, and I tell you, it was so much fun. And I dealt with them some too because of the graphics and whatever. So it was fun.
Yeah, and I want to tell you a story about that. And actually, Phil has a truck. Phil still has that same white 3/4 ton truck. He still has that truck, and he and Jep were going to come up to the dealerships, but we had to make a one-stop shop, in other words. But Dennis Knoll, an old friend and customer of ours from Jonesboro that ran D&W wholesale down there, told us that they actually had the swamp people at their place, and what they didn't realize is they didn't have the facilities, and there were just people just bombarded the place. They didn't have the restroom facilities, they didn't have the parking facilities, and the Robertsons were quite a bit more popular than they were. So we decided if Phil and Jep were going to come up and be at one place, that it was sorry, my phone was ringing, that we just weren't going to have the facilities to handle it. It was just and it was pretty wild with Jep. It got a little nerve-wracking at times, but It was pretty wild when he would.
It got out that they were coming, and you couldn't go anywhere without someone saying,
"Yo,
when are they coming? Is it everybody invited? What's the deal?" And so we had to. If we had done it, it would have had to have been top secret. You could not have had them.
No.
Yeah, no.
And we went to Kennett first, and and then we came to Rector. And by the time we got to Paragould, went to the Paragould Ford store, the Paragould GM store down south was the last place. By the time we got there, it had ballooned, and it was quite a day. It really was. It was pretty neat.
Well, back to the dealership itself. How many ball teams does Glen St sponsor? Have any idea?
Well, in all the towns, I would probably say somewhere, I don't know the exact number. Kevin Manchester would probably tell you that, but I would probably say somewhere around 20.
People don't realize it. They just think in Glen St, they think that you probably sponsor a team, but have no idea. Same with chambers. How many chambers do you belong to?
5, I believe.
5, yeah. And people just don't realize what a dealership or a business this size does for the community, besides just being there, how they get involved in so many things. I mean, I know when I worked there, I was just involved in everything that was okay with Danny. You know, he wanted us to be involved and with the community, and that's awesome. Not everybody, and you know, I talked to a guy yesterday at Leachville, and he said, you know, I don't even call anybody. I just call Todd and say, hey Todd, I'm looking for a truck and I want this color and I want this engine, I want this transmission, I want this. He said, and he just tells me how much it is, and I said, well, just get it ready. I'll be up there in a couple of days and pick it up. We have lots of customers like that.
We have the best customers in the world.
No kidding.
I can say this, I don't speak of stuff like this often, but we have district managers we're a direct contact dealer here in Rector, and as well as the other stores. But we've been a direct contact dealer in Rector for several years
and
now.
tell them what that means.
What direct contact means is I can actually call, our dealership can call and talk to a person that's a direct line to General Motors. If you're not a direct contact dealer, you would have to call a call center. That usually goes to the Renaissance Center, a big skyscraper up in Detroit. But I've got a guy that I can call, and I've had several different district managers, and every single one of them that whenever they first walk in the store or I talk to them on the phone, they've heard about the dealership. They're just fascinated with where we're located, because geographically, looking at the terms of what General Motors wants their dealerships and the communities they want their dealerships in, of course, population serves a population is a big factor to them.
Sure.
But if you achieve the numbers that they expect you to achieve, then they really won't give you any issues at all. Of course, we have the customers that allow us to do that, and
Well, GM knows how many vehicles are sold in this trade area.
yes,
They know how many are GMC and how many are Chevy, how many are Ford or Dodge. And they know what your share of that number should be.
it's called area of primary responsibility. That's what it's called.
And they actually give you this number and say, this is how many vehicles you should sell. And I remember one time this guy came in to Danny and said he opened up his book and had this chart here, and he said, you know, here's your trade area. This is the number you should sell. You're not on here. And Danny's thinking, oh my gosh, they're fixing to make me combine with Kennett and put one dealership somewhere. And he said, you're way out here at like 400%. You know, he said, I'm supposed to be here telling you how to sell more trucks, but what I need to change seats with you. You tell me how you sell this many trucks.
That's right.
And Glen St has just always been there. And I know we're bragging, but
Well, I mean, it's just it's a remarkable story, and I know that people I watch YouTube videos and watch people walk in dealerships and they're unwinding the scams and the extra snake oil, a lot of people call it, but we don't have that here. We don't have that at our dealerships, and I know that our customers and people, the first time buyers that walk in, they figure that out pretty quick. And we get them in and out pretty quick. We try to make it as convenient for them as possible, where, you know, you hear where they go other places and they'll spend all day, and for the life of me, I don't understand that. But
and they can drive 2 minutes down to the revenue office here, and in 10 minutes be on their way.
On their way.
You know,
we have people come from Paragould that will come to Rector to get their tags renewed before they'll walk into Paragould's revenue office, because they said we can be up here and be back home before a lot of times they can call our number down there. So
drive that 18 miles.
Yeah. For those who don't know, you don't have to go to the county you reside to register your car and take care of your revenue business. You can go to any revenue office in the state of Arkansas.
Right.
But you do have to call and assess it now on your own. The revenue officers they won't call and do that anymore.
Right. Yeah, they put a stop to all that. That was some customer service that you only got in small towns that the city that the city, one of the top of the chain has stopped it. That's what I'm trying to say. So,
And you just people, the General Motors, my district managers and my regional manager, you can't make them understand how this business works up here. And you could go in the ins and outs. But there's a lot of stuff we have to be involved in. A lot of stuff that I really think is more designed toward metropolitan dealers, but we just cannot market ourselves like a metropolitan dealer.
Yeah,
we just can't do it. Yeah. Not that they want us to, but they don't understand. It's just because all these people that I deal with from General Motors, they're all from big, huge metropolitan areas all over the country, and they're just not from rural areas, and they just don't understand it.
You know, I was just thinking, we cannot talk about Glen St and not tell a William Edgin story. Some of them we can't tell on here, but some.
Yeah.
But I remember one time when they were working on the front there, putting the new facade up, they were up on top of the building, and there were some little tornadoes down on the south playing around out there, and they come running down off the top, and they were scared to death. And for some reason at that time they played around that football field and ball fields all the time. They weren't wind tunnels; they were small tornadoes. Mm-hmm. And so we saw them all the time. And I'll never forget what William said. He said, told old boy, said, if you'll just stand still, it's a 50-50 chance that tornado won't hit you. Either it would or it wouldn't.
Yeah. He also said, which I'm going to say this a little milder, but he also was looking at the obituaries years ago and said, well, I don't know who this old boy is, but he wasn't worth a flip. I can tell by looking at his pallbearers.
we should have written, if we'd have kept all of his lines down, we could have written a really, really good book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it would have been a top seller. Mm. Yeah. William, I tell you, he was like a grandpa to me, or an uncle or whatever. He took me under his wing. When I first went to work there, I didn't know anything at all about cars, nothing. My dad was a mechanic, and so he'd always fix it for me. So I knew nothing about cars, and so I had a 5-gallon bucket back there in the shop. And of course, that was the old shop, and it was all just, everybody was on top of each other right there. But if they came up and got a part that I wasn't familiar with, I'd go back and get that bucket and set on that bucket and watch it replace it. That way I knew what it was, where it went, and whatever.
Yep.
And so when William retired, he was telling us the stories, and one of the stories he said was that I wore out 5-gallon buckets trying to learn how to work on trucks.
On trucks.
And
yeah.
Another thing, he had everything lined up to where he could just walk in the back door and grab what he wanted and go back to the back. And then at the end of the month, he'd come up and say, get your repair orders out here. And we'd sit down and he'd say, okay, Junior Val's, 87 model truck. We did this, and used this part.
Yep.
Had a memory out of this world, and so I didn't like the way it was set up. We had a lot of retail business then, and I kind of wanted it set up according to how the system was, and so I went to the grocery store and borrowed a buggy. You remember this story? And I borrowed a grocery buggy. And I was moving stuff around. And he just complained because he didn't like that I was moving around. One morning I go in, and I unlock that morning, and I go in, open the door, and right in front of the door in the parts department was this buggy turned upside down, and the wheels, he'd cut the wheels off of it.
Sounds just like him.
Yeah, I said, William, that's not our buggy.
Sounds just like him.
Yeah, lots of good William stories. I loved him.
I did too.
Yeah. So what comes to mind? We've gone
I mean,
through.
the business has changed dramatically, but then in some ways it hasn't. It's buying and selling doesn't change. I've said this. People heard me say this a lot. If you walk into a Quick Mart or a grocery store, if you walk in Harps, I mean, yeah, the price of bread will change, and sometimes they'll have different types of bread varieties. That changes, but the act of buying and selling doesn't change. Mm-hmm. Whether if you do it with a swipe of a card, or if you do it with PayPal on the internet, or if you do it with cash, or buying and selling doesn't change. And
One of the hard things to learn as a salesman too is not to judge the customer by the way they're dressed.
not here, you don't.
No, you remember the
You better not judge a customer by what they're wearing or how they talk.
You remember the old man came in, had his overalls on, and he's in his 90s, and he had a 20-year-old on his arm.
Yeah.
And he said, I got some CDs coming due about a month, and he said, I'm gonna come in and buy me a new truck. Well, you just looking at him, you're thinking, you can't buy a truck, but you never make that judgment, you know. You might in your mind, but you never say it out loud.
No.
And by gollies, he came back and had a different 20-year-old on his arm.
Yeah. You have different women from time to time, but they always had a new truck too. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, those are. But it's just, it really is a remarkable story. I mean, we don't have enough time in the next year to get involved and go in depth of the kind of business it is. We got a really good workforce. You know, I have a really good family support with my wife and my kids, and of course, my wife and I are in our empty nest. We have a granddaughter now, and they live in Jonesboro.
Nothing like that, is there?
No, man, you can bring her up there and shake her up like a soda can and send her back. And we're really delving into the grandparent life, and we enjoy that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But the business itself has been great, you know, and the good outweighs the bad, you know, tenfold. And our customers, if you deal with the public, you're just going to rub some people the wrong way, and that's the part about the business that I wouldn't think anybody likes, but it's just a fact of the matter of doing business, and I believe we're the oldest business in town now. I would think we started in 1954. My grandfather and my great grandfather, R.C. Tracers, started this, and they were here. Their first week open was Labor Day weekend. They thought they'd hit the jackpot, you know, because all the people were coming in for the picnic, and actually the whole first year of 1954 they sold one new truck. One new truck. It was to Sam and Dennis Adams' father. And but how they made a living back then is they worked on cars, and they worked on also tractors. And people was like, tractors? But in the mid-50s, tractors weren't nowhere near as complicated to work on as a car. They just had an engine and a gearbox and a rear end, and that most of them just had three wheels. But they were very, very primitive back then, and then they kind of skedaddled on past that. But you just kept working at it, and word of mouth, and taking care of these customers and doing the best. You got to take care of them. And right now, I will say today is the 12th of June in 2024, but we do have an issue. It's an industry-wide issue. It's not just GM, but they're having trouble getting parts, and they could be a part. It's a cheap part. It could be less than $100. The part could be less than $100, but we might not be able to get the part in a timely fashion, but the vehicle won't run without it. So it's a struggle we're dealing with, but it's industry wide. We're not the only ones. And our customers have really, really been very understanding about stuff like that, and it gets frustrating because a lot of them have their tools in the back of their truck, and their welders, and their air compressors, and it's frustrating. But we try to accommodate them as best as possible, and just do it the old-fashioned way. We're very old souls by the way we do business here.
Yep, I agree. I agree. Well, you got anything else you can think of?
I don't guess so, Joey.
Well,
Not unless you
sure.
got any Navajo seat covers to sell.
Yeah,
Navajo.
that's
That's a story for
that's
another
a
day.
Kirk Ford story.
Yeah,
there.
that's a Kirk story. But
We'll get him in here one of these days.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know, when we finish these things, we always say, "Man, we didn't talk about this. We didn't talk about this." So
We'll get it
yeah,
another time.
We'll do it again sometime.
I've got a bunch of other pictures. We can come back.
Yeah.
We can do it
Okay.
another time. But
Yeah.
because I told Joey, I will say this for you people that people like to look at visual aids. People like to look at pictures. I like to
right.
look at pictures. I enjoyed the pictures at the Missionary Baptist Church, the old Presbyterian church. I hadn't been in that church since I was a kid. I went to a vacation Bible school and forgot what it looked like. So
Yeah.
you do a good job. He does a great job, guys. If you haven't been in this museum, next time you're in town or just next time it's open, you gotta stop by.
Yeah. Just give
It
me a
is
call.
impeccable.
My number is 870-595-4053. Just call me. I'll meet you up here. We had it open, you know, and it was, you know, all volunteers and volunteers got tired of coming up here for staying for 4 hours and nobody coming or you know whatever. So nobody really has a day to waste like that, and so we decided to start this by appointment only, and I'm here a lot. So and I
Joey is
it's not
here a
just
lot.
me. There's 8 people I believe on the board, and there's not a one of them that wouldn't turn loose what they're doing and come up here. The reason on the board is because they love the museum, and so if there's somebody out there that thinks they'd like to be on the board, give me a call or just come see me and we'll talk about that. We got some places open, so if you feel like you want to dedicate some of your time to the community, just give me a call. Anything else before we hang up here?
Good,
It's just
Joe.
like I'm making
Thank
a
you.
phone
I
call.
really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
All right. Todd Ford, Glen St Motor Sales in Rector, Arkansas.
Since 1954.
Yeah.